And now people look back at, Frank Lampard, somebody who really got Christian Pulisic. So I think that, Graham Potter, I feel like this is the reckoning. If Christian can't make it under a third Chelsea manager, you're going to have to start asking some other questions about what's going on. Okay, Rog, in the wake of all the football cancellations, we're going to talk about Bravo reality shows, namely the one that is currently shooting at Chelsea Football Club, where last week the club fired Tommy Tuchel, who a mere 16 months ago brought the Champions League to Stamford Bridge and replaced him.
What have you done for me lately?
Yeah, exactly. And replaced him with Brighton and Hove Albion's soulful tactician Graham Potter. There is so much to unpack here, Roger.
Yes, the decision to part company with Thomas Tuchel in the early hours of Wednesday morning after, it should be said, a dismally impotent defeat in the Champions League at Dinamo Zagreb really felt partially an echo of like the Abramovich shock tank acid bath era days, the quick hook, 7 games into the season after the club had only spunked $300 million plus on new players, some of whom, should be said, as we will discuss, were very much Thomas Tuchel players. Feels a little bit fire, ready aim by Todd Boehly, and we will discuss in a moment about whether the Bowley Ball era feels a bit like meet the new boss, same as the old boss, because I actually think he's doing something, or hopes to do something, very different to the old Roman days. But Davo, you're a Chelsea fan. How do you understand what led to the demise of Thomas Tuchel at the Chelsea? That football truism, never cross Mark Pulisic, strikes again.
Absolutely. I mean, the irony of this is I never, as regular listeners to this podcast know, I never truly warmed to Tommy Tuchel until the 2-2 draw against Tottenham, and the passion that he suddenly showed, the handshake, the run down the line, the red card, every part of it. I was like, finally, Tommy, you're showing something, and I like it. And then, of course, he's gone immediately after.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. You lose a thumb war to Antonio Conte. You lose the locker room. Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, it's very true. This smacks of the way that private equity groups analyze companies when they come in and they buy them. It doesn't matter what you did 5 quarters ago or 6 quarters ago in the Champions League. It's about what is happening in the current earnings quarter. And if you think about Chelsea's record since Todd Boehly took over, I think that they have lost as many games as they've won. I think it was a terrible record, just game after game after game, that awful preseason in America. But even that wouldn't explain it. I think that, and their little dribbles have come out about tensions, in the background, tensions going on during the transfer market. I think it's pretty accepted that Tommy Tuchel opposed Boehly's interest in signing Cristiano Ronaldo. And who knows, it could have been that. It could have been a lot of player power, as happens a lot. So a lot of players and their agents probably messaging ownership about,
still Cesc Fabregas working behind the scenes.
Exactly. Yeah, it could be. It could be Marcus Alonso on his way out. He killed him. But it's there are a number of issues that must have been going on behind the scenes. But I think that, Boehly and his group at Clearlake probably are just looking at results and thinking, it's not good enough.
Also looking at their relationship, and I do think, I love your analysis that this is like 5th quarter, profits are down, we need a new CEO steering the ship. But this could just boil down to an old fundamental, which is relationship between manager and owner. Him, Tuchel and Boehly had utterly metastasized almost immediately. When you speak to people in football, they only spoke through Tuchel's agent, and Tuchel was clearly irritated by Boehly trying to get stuck into everything, the learning curve as he tried to understand the football world. At the same time as Chelsea had to make a massive transition happen, he wanted his learning curve, which led to a slowdown in decision making. And, in those situations, managers, you do speak to managers and they're like, the world's divided into 2 groups of people. There's football people who understand football and there's those that don't. And I believe Tuchel felt that, and he almost publicly talked about how the learning case trying to teach his new owner about the football world. But Tuchel's not blameless. He can be cold. We saw that at Dortmund. He can be withdrawn. And many players felt irritated, confused, ignored, a feeling made worse. People close to the club told me when Tuchel started to flip-flop on who he wanted out of the club towards the end of the transfer window, which led him to lose the veterans. And perhaps most significantly of all, if you Google image Tuchel and Bowley, you will find not a single photograph of the two men together. And that to me is like the symbol of all of it. That's the significant breakdown. And the hard thing was, Bowley had made himself director of football, interim. And it's easy to dodge your owner if he's just an owner. But when he injects himself as your partner, your strategic thought partner, and you are not really talking to him or not seeing eye to eye, you're already on thin ice before the results start to tanker. Two things, as you hint, seem to have particularly done him in. There's the Lukaku debacle, huge financial loss. And perhaps the most American thing ever, Bowley was reportedly super hot on Ronaldo. Tuchel wisely didn't want him, but it left a sour taste. If you lose a few games after that and you are gone. But Davo, Todd Bowley, get me Ronaldo! That is what would worry me the most as a Chelsea fan. That is definitely in the territory of tell me you have not watched a game of football before without telling me you've never watched football before.
Yeah, we should say about the photographs, Rog, that's not a flattering picture for Burley next to Tommy Tuchel. He's so skinny, he's so gaunt. And Burley, looks like he enjoys a drink, enjoys some food, enjoys a baggy shirt. It just wouldn't look good. So I can see why Burley wouldn't want his picture taken.
Dude loves to be photoed with everybody.
Oh, everyone. I'm surprised there isn't a photo of him and the Queen or the coffin circling around right now. It's a shock. He loves his photo being taken. There's a striking photo that you sent me this morning of him and Graham Potter and, somebody else from Clear Lake in the photo and is smiling, taking ownership of that whole situation.
Anyway, first takeaway. Graham Potter, and we'll get to Potter in a minute, definitely upped his image. He got his beard shaved with precision at the barbers. I mean, that was a micro trim that he didn't have down south at Brighton. Or he may have just got his manscaper out and done it. Yeah. Done his, he's doing his down belows. He just thought he'd touch up. But Billy, you've got to describe him, Davo, because he's grinning like a madman in the photo.
Yeah, he is, wearing his Chelsea hat. I mean, I really hope that it's alive. I really hope that it's a live picture, because if it's a live picture, I pressed down on it a few times hoping it was going to move, partly because I thought that Potter was going to be blinking as a cry for help in the way that, military hostages do. It just looked, the poor man looked uncomfortable and terrified in that situation.
Well, I think he's terrified because Burnley's doing like the Steve Bannon thing of wearing the two shirts at the same time, which is hauntingly confusing. But he's also wearing a baseball cap. And Davo, part of me wondered, was it just a hat that he happened to have? Was it Tuchel's hat? Was Bowley wearing Tuchel's hat? Like in the medieval age, you would take the severed head of your enemy and put it on a spike.
Yeah. It is possible.
I've given it a lot of thought.
I'm looking at the photo again in my text from you because I feel like I wasn't prepared to quite do the deep analysis that you want me to do on the picture. Also, look, his hair, that under the hat, it's the wings that are coming out on the side. He's got, 3 or 4 chins under there that seem to be growing with the time. He's got not only the hat, he's also got the Chelsea lapel pin on there. You're right. It is. He's got the Henley. It looks like a Henley underneath the blue baggy shirt. I'm pretty sure that's the same blue baggy shirt that he was wearing before and a plaid blazer. I mean, there is just a lot going on.
There's layers. There's literal layers. There's symbolic layers. Is the blood on the rim of the hat? That's what I can't zoom in enough to find out because I think he's sending us a signal. I really do. I've got to say, Graham Potter to Chelsea, my immediate reaction was it's got real Anakin Skywalker vibes about it. Just a gent succumbing to the temptation of the dark side, becoming the very thing he dedicated his life to destroying. But how are you feeling about it?
I don't really know. I'm not a prophet, Rog. I have no idea if this is going to be, the right time for him to step up. Obviously, an incredibly promising manager, does not have the level of European experience, or even he has a very strange CV in terms of his background about how he even came to be a Premier League manager. But obviously he's a manager whose stock has been rising and rising. He's been connected to a lot of other bigger jobs. And I'm excited to see somebody who has a very, tactically different way of playing football come in and have to now shuffle these chess pieces around and figure out how to put this squad into a system that works for him and works for them. So I think it's going to be very interesting to watch. That's mainly my feeling. But we'll see. It's definitely going to be fascinating to watch how he organises this squad. And certainly from American fans' point of view, certainly interesting to see how he, or if he, uses Christian Pulisic.
We'll get to that, but we've got to take our cap off. And Todd Burley will understand that language as a cap aficionado, that there is possibly a truly novel piece of thinking in this appointment by Burley. There's a consensus wisdom of Big Six football appointments. And Chelsea have announced that they're going to bring in a director of football. This is their full plan, who will be partnering with Potter, who Potter will have insight into who it should be and input into, and the duo will make a progressive, change-making tandem, as opposed to, and this is what's key for Bowley Ball, he didn't want the same old, the hierarchy of your Mourinhos, your Ancelottis, your Klopps, your Peps, someone from that small ether of managers who are said to be worthy of the big club because they've either had big club experience or really overachieved at a great club abroad. And we're getting a hint of Burley Ball doing things differently, zigging when everyone else is zagging. A young risk-taking tandem who he hopes can stay at Chelsea for the long haul, at least one of whom's English, which is a revolution in its own right. And God, will it work? We don't know. Potter's going to be a Champions League virgin. The relentless football and squad management and massive egos of your Obers, massive experiences of your Thiago Silvas, and your massive dads. Mark Pulisic. You didn't have Mark Pulisic tweets at Brighton and Hove Albion. Can he handle it? The challenges, that defence, Rudigerless, Potter must fuse Koulibaly and Fofana and their 120 million pile that they cost with Thiago Silva, keep Reece James, Chilwell, Cucurella, all happy. Depth chart out that midfield, shuffle through Oba, Raz and Kai to try and find goals. Can he do it? Tactically, yes. But as you hint, Davo, the pressure level at Chelsea, you lose a couple of games at Brighton or go goalless when you should have won. And it's still a loving. They do get irritated when it's like the 7th or 8th game. But those good vibes, those best intentions, they won't get rewarded at Chelsea. There's no such thing as feeling good about endeavour at Stamford Bridge. And the club have already briefed the press that the goal this season remains top 4, but that Potter will lead the team next season if he misses that target. If you're to bet, ultimately, we've always said football makes a fool out of all of us. We have no idea how it's going to go, do we?
No idea. We don't see everything that happens behind the scenes. We don't really see the atmosphere within the squad. We certainly don't see training. And we'll have to see if this magic works. We know he'll work well with Cucurella. It actually hadn't occurred to me that he's going to be reunited with his former left winger. So that will work. At least he knows someone at his new school.
And we've got a last word quickly on Chelsea before we go to what, Davo, do you imagine the scene was like in the Pulisic household when news broke about Tuchel's firing?
Well, I think there was probably celebration. I think that there was probably happiness. I think there was probably, a couple of fist bumps going on. But I think it's...
Do you think that's all? Do you not think...
What, guns fired? You think there were shots, Kalishnikovs going into the night? Yeah.
Yes! And what AK-47 just wild frenzied shooting into the London air. Or maybe that's unfair and it was more like the vibe of just dancing chassids, just, hey, lads! Or maybe it's just like, son, go and get the cigars, the good ones for the top shelf, which is something we'll never know, but we can prognosticate. How do you think progressive Potter, with his hunger for young talent, may shift things, may change Pulisic's reality?
Well, I think there is, to some extent, I think there's going to be a reckoning for Christian at this point. I think we now look back in rose-coloured glasses. Oh, everybody misses Frank Lampard because he really trusted Christian Pulisic. All I remember is American podcasters and broadcasters going insane about the fact that Frank Lampard wouldn't start him at the beginning.
What was Frank Lampard's son's name? Mason Mount.
I know, it was all of that kind of stuff. So it was and now people look back at, Frank Lampard, somebody who really got Christian Pulisic. So I think that, Graham Potter, I feel like this is the reckoning. If Christian can't make it under a third Chelsea manager, you're going to have to start asking some other questions about what's going on.
It's going to be fascinating to watch both how Potter acts and how Pulisic responds. Potter does love tactical flexibility, players who can find pockets of space and are versatile. You look at what he did with Gross and Trossard, and I've been watching a lot of videos of those two players. If I were Cristiano, we'll just say for now, Godspeed to all. Listen to the full version of this podcast and all our podcasts wherever you get your pods. But first, subscribe here for more Men in Blazers videos. And courage.